that we're in 2020, and I found a place that doesn't have internet in the cabin. So I did find a place where there is some internet. I'm outside, so I'm wearing my mask. I hope everybody can hear me. We're in Maseches Shekalim, Perek Hey, Mishnah Dalet. Now in Perek Hey, Mishnah Aleph, we learned about the 15 mamunim, the 15 supervisors. Two of the supervisors were Yochanan ben Pinchas, we'll call him Yochanan, and he's the person you went to, gave money, and got a receipt for flour, oil, and wine that you needed to bring with your carbon. The other person that was the flip side of his coin, Yochanan, was Achia. Achia was the one who actually had the flour, the oil, and the wine. So how did this work? So we explain this. Person came to the Beis HaMikdash. He went to Yochanan, and he said, I'm bringing a carbon that's a ram. A ram, oh, you need a ram. So he would give Yochanan whatever the cost is for flour, wine, and oil for a ram. And for that, Yochanan now would give him a receipt. So the morning starts in the Beis HaMikdash, and Yochanan has parchment and a pen, and he can write receipts. Achia is in another place, and he has the actual inventory. He has flour, oil, and wine. That's how the morning starts. Achia has receipts, Yochanan has receipts and no money, and Achia has inventory. I'm going to use the word inventory, meaning flour, oil, and wine. So again, the morning starts, Yochanan has receipts, Achia has inventory, nobody has money. Somebody walks into the Beis HaMikdash, we'll call him Reuven. Reuven walks into the Beis HaMikdash, he reports to Yochanan. He says, I have a ram to bring today for a carbon. Yochanan says, okay, it's 10 shekel for the inventory. You're going to have to pay 10 shekel for flour, oil, and wine. Reuven gives Yochanan 10 shekel. Yochanan gives Reuven a receipt. A receipt that says what on it? Zohar. We learned that yesterday, the 4 receipts, Egel, Zohar, Gedi, Chote. So Reuven now gave Yochanan 10 shekel. Reuven now has a receipt that says Zohar on it. Reuven goes to Achia with the receipt. He gives Achia the receipt, and he gets oil, flour, and wine for his ram carb. Where are we now after this first transaction? Yochanan now has cash that Reuven gave him. And Yochanan, here we go again. Yochanan has cash. Reuven has his flour, oil, and wine. And Achia gave away some of his inventory. And what did he get for his inventory? A receipt. So Yochanan in the morning started with the receipt and no cash. Now Yochanan has some cash, but one less receipt. What does Achia have? Achia now has a receipt, no cash, but gave away some of his inventory. So this is what the Mishnah is going to explain now. We talked about the last few days. This is a system of checks and balances. Mishnah Perek, Mishnah Dalet. Mishu Mavakish Nesachim. Somebody needs Nesachim. Nesachim is the term of art here for flour, oil, and wine. He goes to Yochanan, and Yochanan is in charge of the receipts. So he goes to Yochanan and he says, I'm bringing a ram. I need Nesachim for a ram. So Reuven gives Yochanan money, and he gets from him a receipt. So now Yochanan has one less receipt, but he has cash. Reuven now goes to Achia. He's actually the one that's the responsible party for the inventory. Reuven gives Achia the receipt, and now he gets the inventory, flour, oil, and wine. So where are we now? Yochanan has one less receipt but cash. Achia has a receipt and less inventory. And Reuven has flour, oil, and wine. And this keeps on going on during the day. Then Shimon comes and he goes to Yochanan, gets the receipt, gives him cash. Shimon takes the receipt and goes to Achia and gets his flour, oil, and wine. And then Levi comes. This goes on the whole day. By the time the day is over, where are we? Yochanan has quite a bit of cash. Achia has quite a bit of receipts. But Achia has lost a good deal of his inventory, and Achia is responsible to make sure that there's flour, oil, and wine daily in the Beis HaMikdash for people who need karbanos. So Yochanan has a lot of cash, and Achia has lost a lot of inventory. And for the inventory, he got a bunch of receipts, but he needs cash. What do we need to do? We need to have a forensic audit here. We're going to have a forensic audit. The Mishnah now says, Ula Erev, at night, when all the karbanos are done and you can't bring any more karbanos, after the karban tamid shel bein harbayim in the afternoon, no other karbanos can be brought in the Beis HaMikdash. It's called the mitzvah hashlama, hashlem oler kol karbanos. Ula Erev boim zeitzel zeh. And the evening, Yochanan and Achia have a little meeting. Achia moitzias hachoisomos. Achia takes out all the receipts he has and he starts adding them up. I have a receipt for 3 rams. I have 4 receipts for cattle, egel. I have 15 receipts for sheep. And here are the receipts. And now you, Yochanan, who received all the cash for those receipts, give me the cash, because I need to go back into the marketplace and replenish the inventory of flour, oil, and wine. Achia takes out all the receipts he received during the day for which he gave out inventory. And Yochanan has to now pay him for all those receipts. So the morning started with Yochanan receipts, Achia inventory, nobody cash. During the day, people gave Yochanan cash. They got receipts. They gave the receipts to Achia. The day is over. Achia is now going to give the receipts back to Yochanan. Not that he's going to use it again because they expired. We're going to see they have dates on it. But Achia is going to produce the receipts to Yochanan and say, look, Yochanan, I gave out all this inventory based upon all these receipts. You collected money for all these receipts. Give me the cash now. I need to go back into the marketplace and buy some more flour, oil, and wine. Okay, so we have the checks and balances between Achia and Yochanan. This is the number of receipts. That's how much cash you should have. Vim hosiru. What happens if Yochanan opens his kupah, and in the kupah he has 150 shekel, and Achia produces receipts that are worth 140 shekel. So now the kupah that Yochanan collected has 10 extra shekel in it. Who does that 10 extra shekel belong to? This happens in banks, it happens in stores. People forget to charge things. There are different mistakes that are made. So now Yochanan ends up having 150 shekel, and Achia only has 140 shekel worth of receipts. Where does that extra 10 shekel go? Im hosiru lahektish. If there's extra money, it belongs to hektish. It goes to hektish. V'impachsu. Banks happen all the time. Tellers are responsible for shortages at their kupah. Achia produces to Yochanan 150 shekel worth of receipts, and Yochanan has 140 shekel. And now there's a shortage. Achia gave out 150 shekel worth of flour, oil, and wine based upon the receipts. And Yochanan is producing only 140 shekel. Who's going to make up that 10 shekel? Yochanan has to take it out of his pocket and make up the shortage. Like a bank teller, short, you got to take it out of your pocket and make it up. Sheyad hektish al hal yoina. The same rule we've learned in this Mishnah, in this parak several times. The hand of hektish will always be more powerful or stronger than the hand of someone else, or the hand of a consumer or others. Hegdish, one way or another, will win. And as I explained this week when we learned other halachas, because this is not a surprise we spring on people, all of a sudden there's a problem and we say, oh, Hektish wins. This is an understanding going into every transaction, basically. People know Yad Hektish Al Hel Yoina. So as we explained, when you go in, when the Gizber went into the marketplace and he had to buy flour, oil, or wine, and they set the price for the year, and then there was an increase in the price or a decrease in the price, Hektish will always win. Well, that doesn't seem fair. Of course it's fair, because everybody in the marketplace knows if you want to do business with Hektish, Yad Hektish Alo Yona. Hektish will always come out on top in price fluctuations. You want to do business with Hektish, you take that risk. You don't want to do business with Hektish, that's also okay. But the point is, in a commercial transaction, as long as everything's understood in advance, no one can say that's unfair, it suddenly popped up on me. This is well understood, no one's taking advantage of anyone. So again, Yad Hektish Al Ha'el Yona, and therefore if Achia produces receipts of 150 shekel, and Yochanan only comes up with 140 shekel in his kupah, Yochanan has to take money out of his pocket. Yochanan knows that going into the job, that Yad Hektish is Ha'al Yona. We're on page 40, Perek Hey, Mishnah Hey. Somebody, his receipt. He went to Yochanan, he said, Yochanan, I'm bringing a ram as a carbon today. And Yochanan said, okay, it's 10 shekel for the flour, the oil, and the wine. Give me 10 shekel, I'll give you a receipt. He gives 10 shekel, he gets the receipt. Before he gets to Achia, to give Achia the receipt and get the flour, oil, and wine, he loses the receipt. Now what do? The man paid 10 shekel, lost his receipt. And this man, Reuven, says, I never got my wine, oil, or flour from Achia. We wait until that night. What happens that night? Achia and Yochanan are going to do their accounting work together, their bookkeeping. Achia is going to produce his receipts, and Yochanan is going to produce the cash. So here's an easy way to check up. Let's make believe that the receipt for a ram cost 10 shekel. And Reuven came in and said, I have a ram. Yochanan here's 10 shekel. Yochanan gives him a ram receipt, which it says on it Zachar, and Reuven loses the receipt. All right, so we wait till that night. There's going to now be this accounting, bookkeeping between Achia and Yochanan. Achia produces receipts. Yochanan produces the cash. They see that Yochanan has 10 extra shekel. Well, what does that mean at this point? We know that someone lost a ram receipt, and a ram receipt costs 10 shekel. It turns out that Achia only has 140 shekel worth of it. And Yochanan has 150 shekel in his kupah. What does that mean? That means that we now know that Reuven's 10 shekel were never redeemed, and that's why Yochanan has 10 extra shekel, because Reuven's receipt, which got lost, no one's going to find it now. The day is over. We're going to see that the receipts are dated. Nobody can fraudulently use it now. It's over. So Yochanan's 10 extra shekel. Can everybody please mute? Apparently not everyone's muted. Okay, so now Yochanan has 10 extra shekel. Well, where did that 10 extra shekel come from? Well, now we know. Reuven lost a receipt worth 10 shekel. Achia only had 140 shekel worth of receipts, and Yochanan has 150 shekel. That extra 10 shekel is the 10 shekel that Reuven gave him, and we're going to give back Reuven that 10 shekel, and tomorrow he'll be able to take that 10 shekel and bring his carbon tomorrow with the flour, oil, and wine using that 10 shekel. So that's an easy case. Person lost his receipt. And during the cheshbon, the bookkeeping, we realized that Yochanan has 10 extra shekel. Boom. There's a receipt that got lost worth 10 shekel. Yochanan has an extra 10 shekel. That 10 shekel belongs to Reuven. We return it to him. Everything's fine. Vim lav, but if you cannot, if there's no extra money, lo hayalo. That's it. If there's no extra money that Yochanan had, Reuven lost his money. He lost the receipt and he lost his money because there's no extra money to demonstrate where that receipt is. V'shem hayom kosav aleim, the name of the day, there was a date on it. Yeah, if somebody posted a question, what if the carbon is time bound? If the carbon is time bound, it has to be brought that day. Reuben's going to take another 10 shekel out of his pocket, and he's going to buy a new receipt from Yochanan, and he's going to go to Achia and get flour, wine, and oil and bring his carbon that day. And at the end of the day, the accounting is done. If it turns out that there's an extra 10 shekel, I give him back his 10 shekel. If there's no extra 10 shekel, he lost 10 shekel. So the Mishnah says, V'shem hayom kosav aleim, every receipt had a date written on top of it, because of the Ramoyim, the whatever you want to call them, the dishonest people. The problem that we're worried about is a dishonest person will have, let's say there's no date on the receipt. A person's walking around and he finds a receipt on the floor. There's no date on it, he pockets it. He's not going to use it that day because he knows the person who lost the receipt is looking for it. And so he knows the owner is around and looking for a lost receipt. So if the receipt's not dated, this dishonest person will pick up the receipt, he'll pocket it. Maybe he'll use it tomorrow, maybe he'll use it next week, but he's going to use it if he wants a carbon. He'll be able to, it's a very strange case, but not that very strange when you think about the history of the second Beis Hamikdash specifically. The person's bringing a carbon and he's trying to cheat on the wine, the oil, and the flour. But that's a possibility. Person brings a ram, he finds a receipt. He's not going to use it that day because he knows the owners are looking for it. What he'll do is he'll pocket the receipt, and tomorrow, the next day, he'll come and give it to Achia and say, here, I have a receipt for wine, oil, and flour for a ram. So in order to make sure that no one can misuse the receipts had to be dated. That's Mishnah Hay. Mishnah Vav. Now, Mishnah Vav is going to surprise us, but that's okay. There are different interpretations about how to understand this particular Mishnah. There were two special rooms in the Beis Hamikdash. Now, when we learned Masechta Midos, and then we learned Masechta Tamid, we did not hear about these two rooms. It wasn't mentioned in the Binyan Beis Hamikdash, the second Beis Hamikdash, and it wasn't mentioned in Masechta Tamid. But there are two additional rooms that we never heard about. Achas lishkash chashoyim. One is the quiet room. Va'achas lishkas hakelim. Chashoyim either is quiet or private. The quiet room or the private room. Va'achas lishkas hakelim. And one room is the room of vessels. We never heard about these rooms. Lishkas chashoyim. What was the quiet or private or hidden room? God-fearing people who wanted to give tzedakah. They didn't want to give it directly to a poor person so as not to embarrass him. And that's a big inyan the Gemara talks about, to give tzedakah b'chashoy, to give tzedakah sort of privately so that, A, you don't have to publicize how much tzedakah, no one needs to know how much tzedakah you give. And second, it's less embarrassing to the ani to have to take it from your hand. So they set up in the Beis Hamikdash a lishkas chashoyim. Yirechet, God-fearing people who wanted to give tzedakah, they would put their money in this room. No publicity, no nothing. They would walk into this secluded, quiet room and put some money in there. V'aniyim b'nei toivim. This is a very interesting lashon we're not going to go into right now. Aniyim, the children of good people, the very fine aniyim, misparnasim b'toicha b'chashoy, they would go into this room and take the money that they need in order to support themselves. So this is really very interesting, since we just learned about the checks and balances that go on in the Beis HaMikdash, and how careful we are with public money, how we collect it and how we disperse it. There's a room in the Beis HaMikdash called Lishkas HaChashoy, where people who are God-fearing people wanted to give tzedakah, they put the money in the room without any accounting. Nobody knows how much they put in there, which is fine. But apparently they get to go into the room. I am assuming that there's some kind of guard at the door. So the guard does know that who's going in, but he does know how much you're putting in there. He does know when you come out if you're carrying a couple of sacks with you. But again, it's a very difficult concept. Remember, we learned that the person who goes into the lishka to take out the trumas halishka of the machzis hashekel, he can't wear shoes, he can't wear sandals, he can't wear tefillin, he can't wear his amulet, his robe can't have a seam on it, so make sure that he's not taking money out of the room. We don't have these kind of rules in this lishkas chashoy. And then we have a second problem. We have these aniyim, quote unquote, aniyim b'nei toivim, not your regular ani, aniyim who are children of good people. They get to go into this room and they're trusted to take what they need. So this is difficult Mishnah in the middle of Maseches Shekalim, where we're so careful about who collects and how it's given out. There was such a room in the Beis HaMikdash where tzedakah was given and tzedakah was taken out, which would appear to have absolutely no supervision over it. And that's how the Rav on the left-hand side of your page learns. Mishnah Vav, Hashem sha'anosne b'sochen mois nosne b'seisa, amisparnasim notlim mimen notlim b'seisa. The people that put it in there privately, and the people that took from it privately. Again, it could be, according to some Mefarshim, that there is actually some kind of guard there, and this is still considered private. The person goes in and puts money there. No one knows, except for this guard, who went in there. And certainly nobody knows how much he put in there. By the same token, the guard is standing there and knows who goes in and makes sure only the appropriate, quote unquote, aniyim b'nei tovim go in there. And because they're aniyim b'nei tovim, we assume, the tzibur assumes that they're taking what they need and not more than that. Interesting room in the Beis HaMikdash. It's called Lishkas Chashoyim, the private, quiet, hidden room. Once money is given to tzedakah for the purpose of tzedakah, it does become mammon hatzibur, and therefore you need people to collect it properly and give it out properly. So if somebody gives money to the kupa shel tzedakah, it becomes kupa shel tzedakah, and it is mammon hatzibur. Whether you want to call the kupa shel tzedakah hektish or not, it's not hektish, but it's mammon hatzibur. It's public money, and public money has rules about how it's collected and how it's given out. So this is an interesting room in the Beis HaMikdash. Lishkas HaKelim, the other room we didn't learn about, the room of the vessels. Somebody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm buying myself a new microwave and a new toaster oven. And he wants to give his old microwave and his old toaster oven to Hektish. So what does he do? He goes to this room, the room of the vessels, and he puts his microwave. The Mishnah says, Zorko, you throw it in there. You put your microwave or your toaster oven or whatever you want, you put it into this room. Every 30 days, Gizborim Poischen Oisa. The Gizborim open up the room. This room, whatever's in this room, is hegdish. It's for bedek habayis. So who deals with this? The gizborim. Remember, we learned yesterday that there are 5 levels, perhaps even a 6th, but 5 levels of how transactions are done. Very important transactions done in the Beis Hamikdash. Kohen Gadol, assistant Kohen Gadol, Kalutikin, Amarkalim, and Gizborim. So the Gizborim go in, they're the hands-on people. The Gizborim go into this room every 30 days. Any vessel that has a direct use for bedek habayis, they left it there because they can use it. For example, someone put a hammer in there or a tool set in there. So the Gizborim may decide this is great. We have a set of tools now. When we hire people to fix things in the Beis Hamikdash, we now have a set of tools to give them. So if it's something that the Beis Hamikdash can use lebedek habayis, they leave it in the room. These are vessels that belong to bedek habayis. For hashar, but if you put in there a toaster oven or microwave, which generally has no use in the Beis Hamikdash, nimkarim bidmeya, the Gizborim would sell these things, v'noflam lishkas bedek habayis, and they will become money that will be used by the Gizborim for the bedek habayis. That's Perek Hey. Now, Perek Vav will begin in Yetz Hashem tomorrow. It's going to be very, very exciting for us to begin Perek Vav. Perek Vav begins on page 41, but if you take a look at page 42 and page 44, we're going to have a replica of our famous Midos diagram 3, because the Mishnah is going to discuss certain parts of the Beis Hamikdash and the places where a person bowed in the Beis Hamikdash, things that we learned in Masechta Midos and some in Masechta Tamid. And we're going to be using, rather than our Midos 3, although you can go to your Midos 3, in this print, page 42 has a replica of it, and page 44, which is the Beis Hamikdash, page 42. Page 44 is the Beis Hamikdash in the Har Habayis. So we know, remember, we have 2 pictures. One in Masechta Midos was number 3, which was the actual Beis Hamikdash. And I believe we had diagram 2, which showed the Har Habayis and its different entrances. And the Mishnah Perek Vav, a lot of Perek Vav is going to be a review of things that we learned in Masechta Midos and Masechta Tamid. So this is a beautiful way, Baruch Hashem, to learn. We did Midos, Tamid, Shekalim is going to help us review things, and we're going to get a picture again of the Beis Hamikdash.